texted me and was like, I'm pretty sure Bridget hates this. And I'm like, you think everybody hates you.
I'm like, this is literally what we would choose to watch in my free time. With me and my husband. I kept telling him that.
Like,
let's close the schools.
Whoa, in the Bridget way
yelling
that
at
she
your
does.
phone.
No, it's not a yell. Bridget doesn't yell unless it's to yell at me. But
unless
then she goes,
unless I'm really emphatic about it.
I yell when I'm excited about something. I don't yell when I'm mad.
Depends
the more
on how
angry I get, the quieter I get.
We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing programs beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, most times we go deep. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by
CosmoMom09
and Bridget. You can find me at youtube.com/@punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. And have you seen our number of subscribers on YouTube lately? David.
We're really close to 1,000, unless we crossed it and I didn't notice.
998 or something. Meanwhile, I'm sitting at a meager 112, but, love you guys anyway. 2 people away.
So subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/squawkingdead, and subscribe to Bridget's channel, which is
let us monetize. Will you? We're poor.
Punky
Just
Brewster.
help us. And that's free. That's a free way to help.
Such a free way to help. Subscribe. Yeah. You don't even have to enable notifications, but though I would appreciate it if you did, so you didn't miss a thing, and you can increase our watch hours, which we're more than halfway actually reaching per year, which is 4,000 watch hours. We're above that watermark, at least halfway. And we have the episodes to kind of help us to get to that point, because our episodes are easily an hour to an hour and a half about. No more than that, actually. A couple of bits of housekeeping before we continue. One,
did you freeze?
Is that we just... No. I literally froze as a person.
You did freeze.
We recently set up a goal in our Ko-fi page, and that goal is to help us get to the camp. Now, if something's been holding you back from tipping us on Ko-fi, and you're not really into the whole idea of getting our unedited episode recordings for 30 days, or by pre-squawk insights, or instant forever access to our Discord, well, we'll try the reaching into your hearts and saying, hey, Kalima. No, we'll try to appeal to your hearts to help us get to the camp. Now, we do have enough money to get there. It's just that we've put in basically a whole lot of money to get our lodgings for the camp in order. We're just hoping that you guys can replenish those funds. So we're already halfway there, thanks to a certain benefactor. Our great M tier member at Real Ryan GM funded us halfway. I was waiting until now to tell you guys.
I saw it actually because I'm nosy.
How did this goal reach 50%?
I was like, I gotta look. I gotta know.
They're at 998 subscribers. How are we doing on the money front and the goal front? Oh, they're at 53%. I'm only at 2% of whatever goal Bridget has on her page, which I'm not nosy about because I'm too busy.
It's so old. It's like a year old, whatever the goal is. Probably last camp.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's old, dude. It's real old.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Please tip us on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/squawkingdead and help us get to the camp. Technically, not really, but technically it helps us for all the other expenses that we have. And if you like what you're hearing, well, show us that you do. I'd really appreciate it. It's like we said at the end of the episode last week. If you want the style, let it die. Let it die. It's fine. You can let it die. Just do nothing. But if you like what you're hearing, we don't have advertisements for a reason. We don't make money from this podcast. Clearly, because we're asking you for help to go to a convention. Clearly, we don't have any income from this podcast. We do this for you. Anyway, second bit of housekeeping is something that we should have said maybe a while ago, and I'm not sure that we did. The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live is currently streaming on Netflix to resounding success. It's been in the top 10 TV series ever since it was announced a couple weeks ago. It's hovering between the 3rd and 4th spot. It was at number 1 for quite a while. That's not even the thing I want to tell you guys. I saw recently on X, it was trending, this one user named SHEWONNA had said, I had never watched a single episode of the Walking Dead universe franchise at all. I turned on The Ones Who Live and I was enraptured by this story. And I had suspicions that you could watch this series without knowing anything. But you can never really tell until you find somebody that's never watched a single episode of the Walking Dead universe at all. And when she had said this, I was like, you know me. I like different points of view and people tackling things from different directions. And The Walking Dead isn't typical horror. It's not typical thriller, suspense. It's like a drama that's wrapped in a candy coating of zombies. And so this kind of confirms that there is this beautiful love story. Each episode is a mini movie. It could end right there every single time, except for maybe a couple. And it's satisfying in that sense. And I loved hearing that. Shout out to Shawana.
I think that's really cool to know that you could watch it freestanding and that it still hits them in a dramatic way. We can't know. We're in too deep. We're on a podcast.
That's why I loved getting that perspective, because
that's really cool.
You kind of need that. You kind of want to know what people would think of this just freestanding.
My cousin and her boyfriend are starting to watch The Ones Who Live. I keep messing up that title. I don't know why, but I do.
Because you want to say towel?
Actually, saying towel would be easier. I can't remember how far into the main show they made it, but they never finished it. They didn't even get to the point where Rick left.
That's the least of it. Some people don't even make it to Negan.
Right. They didn't make it very far into the show, and they're now watching Towel, whatever.
Towel.
And I was like, oh my gosh, she messaged me and was like, have you watched this?
As a matter of fact, here's a podcast talking all about this that you could listen to if you like.
And I was
Did you do that? Or you're not selling us, Rachel?
Yeah, I watched it.
And I talked about it.
No, I did. No, I definitely did. Yeah. And I was like, if you have any questions, you can message me.
Here's a link. And then we could talk about it. And you see how you feel about it. You can have a therapy session with me for the small price of $99.95. Anyway. That's all for housekeeping, but I'm glad that your friends are watching it. You got to be sneaky when you're promoting this podcast with your friends. You have to be like, well, we talk about it. Well, if you're interested, here's the link. You slide it across the virtual table because you're talking on AOL Instant Messenger like Bernard in the last episode, which is a really great clip, by the way, that we clipped from the show. This episode is technically called Into the Fire. It's the season 2 finale of Silo, the 10th episode, as a matter of fact. And the graphic is Patrick Kennedy at the gates screaming, "Display's a liar." So whatever it is, it's safe to go outside. Patrick Kennedy's always intense all the time. He's always at 11. He's so extra.
He really
Patrick
is.
Kennedy.
I know. I wanted to like this character so much. And then I'm like,
you think, by the way,
just like,
that's Bridget talking about Bigfoot, but it's not. She's very chill about her conspiracy theories. So relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I want there to be mystery in the world still, Dave. That's all I'm asking. Patrick Kennedy went a little bit off the deep end, honestly.
I thought you were about to say he didn't go off the deep end enough.
Well, maybe. I was going to say he's maybe at like the frickin' frogs are gay level.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
What?
He's just under that bar, right? He's not quite.
He's not quite Alex Jones.
It's turning the frogs gay.
Like, yeah.
I actually really, really wanted to start at the end.
Of course you do, but before we do, let's talk about the title, which is Into the Fire, technically. And what does the title mean in terms of this episode?
I don't know. There were no literal fires. Wait, no, there was. There was one literal fire.
At the end-ish.
Yes.
But I offer this as maybe a springboard. What is the expression? Out of the frying pan?
And into the fire.
And into the fire. One of the main concerns when you're watching the show, probably at about episode 6, when Patrick Kennedy starts talking about to Kathleen, it's safe to go outside, maybe. You're like, oh no, not this. And then you get to this episode and everybody wants to go outside. It's Juliet's main concern, everything. So you're thinking that's the frying pan. But the fire is all the stuff we're going to end up talking about this episode to get some clarity. And maybe we're in a situation where we are missing some information. Maybe. I'm not sure if this is a show don't tell, or if this is something that we need to kind of hash out to figure it out, or it could be just me. But the fire is, why isn't the Silo 18 key vibrating and flashing? What is this thing about the pipe that it was capped in 17, maybe not capped in 18, the poison gas? That's the fire. Why just Camille Sims? Why not all of them?
I don't know.
She didn't look surprised, though, did she?
More like, I guess.
Just to talk about that for a sec. They did a cool thing when This is just Camille. They did the dolly zoom, which is when you pull the camera back and zoom forward, it kind of pulls the background further away from the subject.
Yeah.
Which is to denote the fact that she's like, looking at the camera. Not surprised, but also kind of like, what do I do now? I've made all these moves. What does it mean that I have to leave my son and husband?
Honestly, I don't think she was shocked or surprised at all. Something happened that we don't know about. I think she knew it was coming. She wanted to get into the vault so bad. If there is shock, it might be that she can't keep her son in there with her. Something happened that the computer knew who she was.
Okay, let me go to Bridget for this one, because you had said all this time that there's a selfish aim in all this. Maybe this was mostly Camille, the Macbeth playbook.
Yeah, it could be, because she changes the plan over and over again, betting with the horse that she thinks is going to win. That has shown a lot in the last like 2 episodes where they're changing their mind and they've gone with the rebels and then no, we're not. And honestly, I spent so much of this episode being intensely anxious, and then it ended much like the first season ended, where I was like, what? That's the end?
My ears.
That's how a good show leaves you hanging, though. You're invested in what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. Now I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's the sign of good writing.
Oh, yeah.
But the end of this season is very different from the one last season. Yes, Juliet in similar fashion comes back. She goes over the ridge in reverse. I mean, now she doesn't walk in reverse, but you get what I'm saying.
We know what you mean.
There were questions hanging at the end of the last season, but they weren't questions that we had to address. Maybe they were like things that were said that were like, oh, well, I could take it or leave it. This season took a single page from and left so much on the table. Too much, in my opinion.
They could have their next season guaranteed, so of course they're going to leave stuff on the table.
Next 2 seasons.
Yeah.
2. I will step back from the brink and say some of the things that were said even in this episode, I don't know about the season per se, but at least this episode, level 14 in Silo 17. They didn't go there because you need to go. You're running out of time. Steve Zahn says. Then there's also the matter of Jimmy's mother. Juliet in this episode picks up Gwen Conroy's receipt for her measurements for her suit. So she also has a suit. So that's like a thing that hangs over for the next season. Oh, maybe not Eater Hope can come over, or Jimmy or whatever, to help or leave, because there's nobody here. Rachel made a request to cover that last chunk of the episode.
I love that you know instantly that all I have are questions. So I'm watching this and my first thought was, ooh, a flashback. But wait, maybe not a flashback. And then they very specifically referenced the dirty bomb in Washington.
Right, in DC.
I thought they said Seattle.
No, they're in DC now.
Right.
And the bomb was in DC. Although they could have said Washington. No, I think it was in DC.
There was a reference to Seattle. Am I crazy? I only watched it once and I was like vibrating watching this scene. They're like on the surface and everything looks normal. And then I'm like, holy crap, flooded with questions. Is this a flashback? I don't know. Maybe this is happening right now. What if the silo is just an area of the US that was affected and the rest of the country is fine?
I'm with you. I thought that at first.
That's what she said in the last episode.
Until he hands her
the Pez dispenser.
The Pez dispenser.
Yes.
And then you know that, because this looks to be like kind of on the same time as we are in now.
Our present day.
Or close. Obviously, it's not
Pretty
our
close,
universe, but it's close.
Right.
Because like
they reference Google.
You see like a Prius and it looks similar to the Priuses that are out now and stuff. She gets the Pez dispenser. That is the Pez dispenser that George had.
Right.
That Sims gives to his son.
A little tin box.
As a magic
to not feel afraid.
Cure-all.
Yes.
Since the beginning of the silos to now, the current silo timeline, we don't know 100% there. But we could argue that it's hundreds of years in the future. And also, are we setting up that it's radioactive in nature? Because wrong. We already did the math on that.
True. It was inconclusive, your math, because part of your explanation meant that it had to be a specific kind of radiation that would last that long. Radioactive material that would bounce around.
I guess if it's
the landscape.
A dirty bomb, then maybe it would.
The ionizing radiation, which is the one that you were talking about that wouldn't dissipate. Nuclear reactor and dirty bombs are often nuclear material. Like plutonium, I contend that actually we're in and around 2005. I had originally postulated that we were in 2018. It was right before Silo was released.
What makes you think 2005?
That conversation is rife with material that if you're just not paying attention, you don't know anything. Now, this reality is obviously not our reality, but it's similar in some ways because of, let's say, 9/11 and all that stuff. Security measures. I remember in and around the time I was in high school, things changed so quickly when it came to bouncers at bars. In New York City, I could go into a bar at 16 and not be carded. But 2 years or 3 years later, when I was 18 or 19, all of a sudden it was everywhere. She says, because you can't serve in Congress without serving in the Army, it's a requirement in this timeline for some reason. But she says, technically, because you were in the Army Corps of Engineers. He's like, don't let me talk you up about what I did in New Orleans.
Don't make me start bragging about, yeah.
Now, what happened in 2005 was Hurricane Katrina. And there was a huge effort by the Army Corps of Engineers to rebuild New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. You look at the cars that are in the street. They're all from that time. Volkswagen Golf, there was a Kia of some kind. They all had 2005-ish looks to them.
I knew that that's what he was talking about, but he's not 18. Time has passed since then. He's not freshly out of the engineer corps.
If Katrina happened in 2005, this would be X amount of years after that.
This is like 10 years after that or longer, 10, 15 years after that. Maybe
he looks
2020,
really young, so I would still say late 20s. I would say max 10.
Early 30s. He's a politician. There's like a look.
He's a politician. There's like a look.
There's a look about them, Dave.
What's the look?
Slimy.
She's not wrong.
Greasy?
Evasive, because that was how he was acting.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I thought he was rather charming, and not in the sort of Teflon Don sort of way. You thought he was kind of suspicious?
Well,
he reiterating he thinks it's a date.
Fighting 15th.
Of course he thinks it's a date. He thinks everybody wants to date him.
I don't know.
Pompous.
I'm not saying that it's not possible that it's earlier than I think it is. I just don't think it's that early.
We could split the difference to say it's 2010 or 2012 even. We can go that far. We can go as far as 2015, but no further.
I would even say like 2018 if that was your first guess. Maybe
that was my original hypothesis.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
We went right back to what I originally thought it was. All right, we found our way back to what I originally thought this whole time, 2018.
Fine, Dave.
So,
I'll let you be right.
So nailing down whatever year it is, what does that mean?
Literally nothing.
Why are
but it's fun. It's fun to kind of nail down something. Thank you.
That is fun. It's just,
what do we care? What do we care about Eater's name?
If we don't do it, some other schmo on the internet will.
Yeah.
So it might as well be us.
I'm more interested in the part he's going to play.
She says the same thing again now. He says, I'm more interested in the fact that she had a name.
No, this guy is part of the government. He's going to have a part to play.
And I could be 100% wrong because I have been wrong about so many things in my life, on this podcast, just in general. I feel like when the season comes back, that it'll tell this story.
Oh, I hope not.
And we won't get to find out what happened to Juliet yet.
I made the same predictions when we did the season 1 recap, and we were wrong about that, by the way.
I know, but
about
it would
staying
be
in
fun if we were right.
No, I hate that. I don't like that at all.
Because sometimes we give you news.
Maybe like one episode, but not the whole season.
Henwick and the other male actor will be in the next season. Jessica Henwick, Helen is her name. I don't think we got his actual name.
No, it just says Congressman in the script.
And the captions.
I like that for us.
It just says Congressman.
What if we find out he's Congressman Holland?
Right.
Womp, womp, womp.
Now I get to put that in the episode.
So dumb.
I don't know. Well, now my gears are turning.
They introduced these characters for a reason. The scene right before this is Juliet and Holland having that conversation about who would do this. Why would they do this? Talking about basically who set up the safeguard.
And then, I don't know. And I don't effing care.
Yeah. And then boom, we're into this scene. It tells me that the safeguard was set up immediately when these silos were built.
Right. Well, yeah, obviously. You want to know why they did this? As soon as I heard the rain pattering, I knew we were going back in because where is the rain going to patter?
Oh, yeah. I was like, you should have heard me when I'm watching it. I'm like, what the heck is going on now? What is this? When is this?
Do you know what I said out loud in the middle of the night when I watched that part? I said, "Oh, you mother effers." I sat up on my seat, kind of like when you, Rachel, you kind of sit up and go, "Oh, yeah." And whatever. Doing this opens up such a vista into this series that we kind of did want. It's like you think it's an answer, but all you have is way more questions.
Yeah.
In the
but
end,
it's progress.
because it opens the door to more questions.
But it's progress. There's a difference. You cannot compare this.
It's not even progress. It does do the same thing that From does. It does open bigger vista for questions and desires for more of these scenes. But the difference is there's a certain level of satisfaction that you get from these scenes. If you can balance the thought of getting more questions with the idea that they gave you something that you can hold on to and go, well, now we get to think about this all the time and it doesn't frustrate us. They've done a good job, haven't they? Oh, and you know what I didn't notice until we were just talking about rain pattering? This episode kind of opens up with a clock ticking. There's all these references of time throughout this episode, which is why I was a little surprised that the episode was called Into the Fire. Then there's the rain pattering, sound effects, hearing something at the beginning of the episode and hearing something else at the end of the episode. You're running out of time. Time is marching on. And then when you hear rain pattering, it's like this dissonance. There's no pattern to it. It's just random drops falling. There's all the time in the world. We keep thinking that we do, but then time at some point ran out for the people in the past. We're assuming it's the past because that's what we've got right now. So there's something to that. Everybody has a job in the silo.
It could be a red herring, the Pez.
True, because Pez has been around for a very long time.
Super long time, still around. I felt like that was the sign that it's from the past, but we don't really know one way or the other, honestly.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The Pez company, or Pez, has existed since 1927 at least, so there's that. It would be 120 years ago. It would be great if it was 140 years ago because of rebellion, but I don't know. Eduard Haas, Austrian company. Our biggest fans are in Austria. We got to play it up. Oh, yeah. So I mentioned 9/11. There's a reason why I danced around that, how things change all of a sudden when something like this happens, a national threat. When I was watching these scenes, I could feel Bridget getting angry because it reminded her that our freedoms were taken away after a crisis. I don't know why I use you as my avatar.
I mean, that's fair. I have a lot of qualms about that. Here's to you, FBI agent who's listening to my every conversation via my phone and also my Chinese spy from TikTok. Thank you very much. I missed
Facebook
you for that
page, basically.
16 hours that you were gone. Have all my data.
16? It was like 8.
Okay, it was like 12.
9, but yeah, whatever.
Whatever, I didn't know. I was gone for longer.
I was probably sleeping for most of it, but when I woke up, it was gone. And before I got out of work, it was back.
And thank God, because how would I live without it, honestly? It's where I get all of my entertainment.
We joked about that in our stories. We never get to see what's behind that door. So there's no Hogwarts ride or Harry Potter ride on the other side. We don't see it. All we see is Lucas Kyle climbing the ladder on the Digger chasm to go up. We don't even see him leave the door. We see him climbing. Because at first I thought, oh, he's in the pipe that
that's initially
Jimmy Conroy
what I
says in
thought
17.
as well.
As you get notes, you kind of figure out, okay, like we didn't get to see what, and we'll see it next season, maybe, as Juliet says to Bernard. And first of all, to get this out of the way, because we may not go back to this point, Juliet's wearing a fireman suit, and if she climbs on top of Bernard, there's a chance they both will be alive, because the fireman suit is fire retardant. So,
oh, I hadn't thought that. That's good information.
Oh, that was racing through my mind as this is all happening.
Thank God
How
for
do you
that,
get out of
Dave.
this one?
I was like, oh God, how's she going to get through this?
Well, the question really is, how is Bernard going to get through this?
He didn't care if he lives or dies.
I see, and now I want to talk about that, but you know, let's move on. But the only thing about that scene that makes me a bit iffy is the oxygen. And if you heat up oxygen, it'll explode, and because pure oxygen is explosive, it catches fire, you die. And the helmet isn't fire retardant too. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. That's the only thing that concerned me. Plastic melts under heat.
They made the fire and the blast last longer than it really did. It's not this raging fire for 5 minutes. It's like a blast, like a woof, and then it's done.
Well, like a fireball.
Yeah,
probably.
The plastic, it's going to take time to melt. But if it's just like a woof, and then done, it's fine.
We've seen it multiple times across the series too. And all it's meant to do is heat up the atmosphere so any bacteria or germs or
it doesn't
whatever
need
in
to
the atmosphere is
burn for a long period of time.
It's just to decontaminate the air that's in the room.
Right.
And they have oxygen, so it's not long enough to heat it up to a point. Right. Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
I don't think anybody
Rachel,
here is worried about them surviving. I certainly wasn't. Not even for a second.
I don't know. Maybe Tim Robbins.
Silo gets me to the point where you could think something could happen at least. Because you never know what's going to happen.
Well, yeah, because we thought we had a different main character and we did not end up with that main character. So
thank you, Bridget. That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's very true.
Bridget's main criticism of Silo was that we lost so many people we got to know in the beginning.
I loved them so much.
I did too.
Yeah, they are endearing.
I did too.
Yeah.
I can't believe we didn't mention this. I think in recent promos, they had David Oyelowo's voiceover. He might have been in the recap for season 2 before we went into it, but he talks about the silo.
Why you need to tell us who that is. I don't know who that is.
Sorry, that's Holston Becker, the original sheriff that we see at first. It's the actor, David Oyelowo. Okay. He played Bass Reeves in Bass Reeves Marshall, something like that. Anyway, which is something I really gotta watch. Anyway, it's fine. Now we're back to this pipe that has poison gas that apparently, let's start slow. Jimmy mentions that his mom never came back. That's 1. 2, his mom's name is Gwen. The only reason why I know that is because we see the slip with her measurements. That's fine. But apparently, whatever it was worked. His father mentioned that they capped their poison gas pipe to prevent it from entering. Okay, now I know what happened. But maybe we can agree on this. Because they capped it, it had to go somewhere. Do we maybe agree on that? And maybe that's what killed them? Because, let me say this, and then we can go further. When Jimmy mentions, it seemed like they were okay. They went outside. They didn't die at first. He was saying this to Juliet.
Yeah, they didn't die right away.
It wasn't in this episode, too, if you remember, until all of a sudden the wind shifted. And that's all basically what he said. We didn't know what that meant when he said the wind shifted.
So you're saying it released the toxin and then it shifted to them?
Because I was like struggling to think, okay, then how did they die? He said everything was okay. Oh, we can leave. We can go outside. Because Russell says, his father says, it's safe to go outside. We have the whole conversation now from the sheriff. I didn't mean to. The gun slipped, killing Russell from IT, Jimmy's father. We have the end of that conversation technically now. It is safe to go outside. I stood my ground and said, no, it's not safe to go outside. Like Juliet says at the end of this episode, Russell says it is safe to go outside now because we capped it or whatever. We made it safe. Don't worry. We'll go further because part of the safeguard is not telling people about the safeguard. It's like Fight Club. Now, if they cap the poison gas from entering the silo, it has to go somewhere if it is being released. And maybe the poison gas made it outside, the wind shifted, and yeah, it would dissipate. But if they're right near the hole where the poison gas is located or would be expelled on the top side, yeah, all these people would die. Now, mind you, all the people that remained inside Silo 17, Hope's mom, Tess and Chase, and Rick and Audrey, and then Benny, eventually, because he wasn't born yet, all those people inside the silo were safe. So they did cap it. So whatever happened didn't happen inside the silo. It went somewhere else. Do we agree with that? My interpretation of what happened.
I don't know that I agree that it was 17. Safe outside, but I agree that they capped it and prevented it from leaching inside. So inside was still safe. Correct.
I agree with Bridget. I also agree that the poison had to go somewhere. I'm not ready to say that that's what killed everyone once they left 17.
We can move on from this point, but it's something to consider. When Jimmy puts his hand to his mouth, it was safe. Everything was safe. My father said they capped it off, whatever. And then he puts his hand to his mouth. Does Jimmy know that talking about the safeguard would disable the key or whatever? Or because what we know about the safeguard is it's like Fight Club, like I said. The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. The first rule of the safeguard is you don't talk about the safeguard or else the safeguard is enacted. So what is the safeguard? Technically, because we had assumed
it's genocide.
That it was. Is it though?
I assume that it is, which is why Lucas Kyle is so.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. None of this matters. I don't want to be your shadow anymore. And he's not even worried about going back to the mine. I'm going to die anyway.
So yeah, send me wherever.
I could see how finding out that information would be very heavy, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, none of this matters. Somebody could just kill us with the flip of a switch at any moment. But they have been there for so many years so far, and no one's done it. You've been safe for arguably 300 and whatever many years that everyone's been there. No one's flipped that switch yet. Yeah, it's scary now that you know about it.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened.
Again, they don't have memory beyond 20 years prior or whatever because of what's been put into the water. As far as they know, this is the furthest revolution has gotten. And revolution essentially means that the safeguard will be enacted.
Does it? Because all the computer said was don't talk about the safeguard. And there have been other rebellions.
Well, that's true.
And the safeguard was never enacted.
There's two big questions that we need to address. One, for all the talk about the safeguard, Lucas tells Bernard where Meadows wouldn't. Now, that may be for many reasons. I think our original assumption about why Meadows doesn't tell Bernard is partially true. She says, I can't tell you. And the reason for that is because if you talk about the safeguard is enacted, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Lucas Kyle tell Bernard? We assumed it was because it would destroy him. And Meadows is right. When Lucas Kyle tells him,
literally,
he is everything I did, all the people I killed, it's for nothing. The game is rigged.
He tells him and he looks at him and he says, just look like we're having a regular conversation. It's serious. Because he's like, because otherwise they might know. And I was like, what?
That's the second part of my question, actually. Before we continue there, why does he tell Bernard? There's two questions here. Does he assume that he's not supposed to tell Bernard, or does he assume that he should tell Bernard? Or is there a part of him that feels nihilistic and says, I might as well tell him because screw it, we're all dead anyway? Why does he tell Bernard if telling Bernard is the thing that makes it happen?
I don't know. And I'm not 100% sure that that's what makes it happen. Now, you guys could be right. But then why were they worried about the safeguard in Silo 17? If it wasn't going outside that would also enact the safeguard, then why did they care about it in Silo 17? Do we still not have the whole picture?
And we still don't, because Gwen Conroy worked in level 14. We don't know what that is technically.
No, but we know
there
that
might
that's
be something
where the
about
pipe
that.
is.
I'm wondering if I missed something. Did we see the safeguard activate in 18?
No.
We may have sort of seen it in 17,
we don't
but didn't know that we saw it.
That's in 18, nothing has happened yet. But the problem is that Lucas Kyle says Bernard thinks that if the key flashes and lights up, that is the sign that there's something wrong. What he doesn't understand is that if it's not flashing and lighting up or anything,
it's already over.
It's already over.
Because he's thinking this whole episode, it's not flashing, I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't say specifically what it is that's over. We don't know what that means.
I assume it's enacting the safeguard at some point, because otherwise, why would you feel so blah about everything? Unless you knew, oh, I'm going to die.
Well, just finding that out is enough to screw you up, though. Look at Meadows. And nothing was enacted.
Let's take a leap. The reason why I originally prompted me to ask this question is because I've kind of now finally figured out why the messages are in code. And it's not necessarily to bury it from the residents of the silo. The whole thing about the pact and go 20 pages ahead and all the things. Because
he's not supposed to talk about it.
Yes, but now I'm starting to think Salvador Quinn, his riddle. We assumed it was for the people to prevent them from finding out what this is. I think it actually might be to prevent the AI from finding out that somebody knows. Salvador Quinn, whoever, because of the way Lucas goes, pretend like we're having a serious conversation so that the AI can't see, so it doesn't know what I'm about to tell you.
What's even crazier than all of this is that Juliet comes back and says, I'm aware of the safeguard.
Yeah.
Are we expected to believe that in that doorway, the AI doesn't go that far? They're just out of reach?
Mm-hmm.
And she knows that the helmet can produce these illusions, these computer-aided graphics. The helmet is a lie. The display is a lie in the helmet.
Well, she knows it exists, but she might not have been told not to talk about it.
Well, correct. She wasn't told that.
Right. She didn't get the same warning that Lucas did.
Which not is what, well, I guess the information Bernard has as well because of Lucas Kyle's conversation with this. And that's why I'm done. Wait, what did you say? I think you're right. I think it's a lot like From in that respect, where these two people know of something from two different angles, and them coming together, assuming Bernard or Lucas Kyle survives, they can figure out this, at least most of the puzzle together, if not a hefty chunk of it. that they'll eventually share with the audience at the end of season 3. I said this last time, we're not going to get the answer right away, and yet we kind of sort of do in the beginning of season 2.
Yeah, we did.
What happens to Juliet? No, we find out right away.
Yeah, we found out immediately. I know.
My assumption was that we wouldn't come back to Juliet for a while.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was going to delay at least a little bit, but nope, came back immediately.
Or one or the other. I thought Silo 18 would be sacrificed or Juliet would be sacrificed.
Okay, I'm just going to accept that I just don't have all of the story yet. It's still not adding up, even with the information that we can like assume that we know about this.
Let me say this. We know that at least in 18, it's like Fight Club. You don't talk about the safeguard or the safeguard happens. I think what she knows from Silo 17, because Jimmy puts his hand up to his mouth saying, we're safe, until they went outside. Well, that's what he's maybe about to say because he puts his hand to his mouth. We assume it's because Russell told the sheriff about the safeguard. Fight Club. If you tell somebody about the safeguard and he was right outside the vault door where the AI would clearly hear it, we assume that. But maybe the information that she gets in Silo 17 is that, well, if the residents go outside, that's when the safeguard might get enacted. Or something involving the people going outside or hearing the truth about this place.
We don't know. I guess the only thing we do know 100% is that it can be stopped.
Yeah. What Juliet knows is that you can cap it and save everyone inside.
And she doesn't even know how to do that because they can't even go to look at it. She has to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that frustrating? I thought of Rachel in that moment. Rachel be like, no, you're right there. Go take a few steps.
Just go look.
Take a peek. Well, it's not going to hurt anything.
That moment was pretty chilling when they hear the explosion. She has no idea that it's her dad.
Oh, yeah. Rachel, I didn't even think about that.
That's the first thing I thought of. She heard the moment.
I totally forgot about it. So many other things happen after that I didn't even think about the fact that she's going to come back to find out that her dad tried to make amends for everything that he had done prior to that.
And she heard that moment. Later in the episode, she gets in Audrey's face about getting back to him.
Right. These people are all you have, despite what you thought they did.
What I thought was the sweetest is that Hank offered to do it instead. I'm going to cry.
Mm-hmm. Of course you love Hank.
I love Hank so much.
You're a thirst trap for Hank.
I love Hank so much.
If he wore a mask, you'd be into it.
I guess so. I'm not on mask talk, but I would be for Hank. That was the right thing to do in that moment, was to offer. No, I'm going to do it instead. Because Hank has friends, but as far as we know, Hank's kind of alone. Mm-hmm. He doesn't really talk about family or anything. He feels like in his heart, this is the right thing to do, is to make sure that you're able to reunite with your daughter because you have the hope that she's alive. And so I have that hope that she's alive. It's such a touching thing. And I really hadn't thought about the doctor staying and doing, because it happened so quickly that I was like, oh, and then like a million other things happened after that. So I didn't even get time to like process it and really think about it.
That's what we're doing now. One thing that we do know about Hank is that on more than one occasion, he's talked about or he's referenced or he's answered the question of why didn't you step up, or you don't act like a deputy. And he's like, why didn't you apply to be sheriff? In the beginning of the series, why didn't you apply to be sheriff? He's like, I don't want that. Turns out that's exactly what Mechanical needs. They don't need a by the book sheriff or gung ho sheriff. That he was the perfect deputy that Mechanical needed. He was from the down deep. He acted like it. He gave them just enough rope to do what they needed to do, but also within the parameters of the law. Sort of. Not really, actually.
He treats it as it's not just a job. He's there for his family. When I say he doesn't have any family, I mean he doesn't have any flesh and blood family per se.
No significant
These
other.
people are his family. This is his family. We can assume this is his chosen family, which is something we've talked about a lot in this podcast, because that's such a common thread between a lot of the shows that we end up covering, the shows that we love, is that it's all about choosing family, because maybe your family isn't super great or there or fell apart or whatever. Finding family and choosing them is a bigger deal. And that was exactly what Juliet did when she left her dad and went to the Down Deep.
Yes, and take that even further. Imagine being the deputy in the Down Deep. You're surrounded by gearheads. And you're the deputy, you're kind of the enemy by default. Hank could be the coolest in the world, but you're still the odd man out. So why grab the ring? Why be ambitious? Why vie for the sheriff? Why even vie for the mids? Like, you want to belong, but you're made the deputy. So in that moment, when he offers to Pete Nichols to manually explode the bomb, that's him saying, let me just do this one thing for this family that you just described, Bridget. I did my best to kind of keep things peaceful and quiet. I don't know how long he's been in the position, but I can't even imagine all this time how, I kind of have to ride this thin, very thin line of being cool with all these gearheads and still take the criticism and the ire. Can you imagine even not being a gearhead, but being crappy at your job, which Hank semi-objectively is not good at his job if he's to be a real sheriff, but takes the criticism and the hits? What kind of sheriff are you? So to make that stand says, A, I'm an integral part of the silo. B, I'm doing the one thing I know I can do for my family outside of my job and not being a mechanical person. There's more to that desire and that offer than is on the table. But let me say the funny thing. I thought of you, Bridget. You're seeing the raider on the cot, whatever, that they're bringing up. And Jean is the raider that sees Juliet in the cornfield and says that she didn't ask to clean. But she appears here and she goes on ahead. They're in on it, those three raiders. Hank gets up and he pulls off his raider's helmet and the mask, whatever that was covering his face. And all I could think of was, God, man, these raiders' helmets can't contain my postal-weight hair. That's all I could think of.
I screamed.
This raider helmet can't contain my postal-weight hair. Postal-thwaite, sorry.
I said, yes, it's Hank! I was so excited.
And his luscious locks.
I had theorized that Walk knew and that they knew when there was a plan. And at the beginning of the episode, it does not seem that way. And I was like, oh, I was so wrong. This is horrible. And Travis is watching the episode with me, even though he has missed so much of this season. He's playing a video game, but like he keeps interjecting into the episode. And at that point, I'm like, oh yes, it's Hank. And he's like, who's Hank? And I was like, I was like, I didn't want to have the conversation.
Shut up. He's my on-screen boyfriend.
He's my boyfriend. Please don't talk about him. It's weird. You're my husband. It's weird.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is Hank runs, right? And then all of a sudden he looks down at the doctor and the doctor looks up at him. And Travis just goes, is he far enough away?
I was thinking the same thing.
If you can see him, like, is he really that far? Is he far enough away? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Because it
my sweet angel baby Hank
gives this
might be killed.
Zoom in of like Hank looking over and it looks like he's 2 feet away from the doctor. It's just the way that the cameras are positioned, but
it's the camera.
It was very funny.
Yeah.
This plan was very meticulously planned out. Everything happened how it was supposed to, except for that timer being gone. What's that about?
So the timer fell. You didn't know it was a timer. I didn't know it was a timer until they say, where's the timer? And I went, that's what that shot held on. Something falls off like the gurney. It's sitting on the ground and they hold on it. And I was like,
okay,
what is that?
Yeah.
Because honestly, it looked like a fidget spinner. It looked like a gyroscope.
What level? Where?
In mechanical. It's everywhere.
Received.
But it did make a tick, 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 tick sound as it fell for the eagle ears.
Bat ears? That's not accurate.
You sonar bats.
That's inaccurate. They can't hear well.
Bats?
Sonar is different than hearing.
Sonar is based on their ability to hear. It's the only way
but
they
it
can
doesn't
see.
mean like it doesn't mean they have super
well.
hearing. Does it? Oh yeah, it does. I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think it does by default because the echoing
wrong.
from the walls gives you a sense of depth.
I'm very wrong.
Right.
And their ears are so big.
Everything you're saying gets worse for some reason. I don't know why. But it's why
Walker's
I love you.
Hand signals, guys. How wild is that? That whole scene was pretty awesome.
So that was the thing. I didn't know Walk was in on it. So that was the coolest part.
From the beginning.
Was finding out that she had been in on it from the absolute beginning. I loved it. It was so good.
And it wasn't Knox going, you're good at it. He didn't know. Yeah. He knew it was Martha.
Last time we talked, we had the whole conversation about Knox. Knox definitely knows, but we had no idea she was actually communicating that with him in that moment. We just figured it was like intuition.
No, this would have happened before. Before they even had the conversation about, I think I know who the mole is. That was a plan. They were trying to give Holland to somebody to throw them off of their plan. But from the first time Knox enters her workroom, so before that conversation even, she's giving
freaking awesome.
It was amazing. I loved it.
And the conversation between her and Holland was just, I had like, I'm like, this is amazing.
I wish
love
it had gone
so
off at the countdown.
Oh no,
It
no!
would've
I
been
loved
so
his.
good.
Actually, no.
I loved his
no.
reaction when
Bernard laughing.
He's like, "Oh,
So
beautiful."
dramatic.
I know. He's
was
like,
my
"What was
favorite.
supposed to happen?" He gets so cocky, and I'm like, "Oh, just wait. Oh, just wait." I love it.
What was that?
He's like me
Yeah.
when I get something right.
So dramatic.
Only see what happens to him is ends up being wrong, unlike me. So
No,
that's
that
fine.
was David, I thought about you in this moment.
See, I cut you off at the pants. See, I'm right about that too.
That was exactly David when he gets something
You
right.
do realize I hate myself every time I make these jokes a little bit because I'm like, oh, is that what they really think about me? And I'm like,
I don't think you
I feel
do.
so bad about myself.
I
do.
We all got this right, and I didn't come on and start the show and be like, interesting. You haven't mentioned that it was right yet.
You were right, Bridget, about this whole thing. And
I'm just kidding. I didn't do that because that's not how you behave when you're right. You do, but normal people don't.
Yeah. So I think you're hyper analyzing me much like we do shows. But anyway, let's keep going. That's fine. I know you hate me. It's cool.
I hate you in like a familial way.
Yeah, me too.
I hate you
I don't feel that. I don't feel that at all. I have nothing but love in my heart for you.
I love you, but like you annoy me sometimes.
I hate you like I hate my brother.
Precisely.
But like way less because you're mean to your brother. You're very
and I'm really mean to you.
No, you're not. You're a pussycat. But
I'm pretty mean.
Nah, you're okay. You think you're mean. Oh, it's so adorable. You think you're mean. You're like, oh, David, I'll say something mean to David. And like,
no, that's true. I'm way meaner to my brother.
Yes, in like a hateful way. Like spit comes out here. It's in that scene though. What you don't appreciate about that conversation with Walk and Knox is that Knox is the one who was the expert here. He's coming in thinking, I'm going to tell her that I know it's you. When she does the hand symbol for stop, which is like put a hand on the table or whatever, on the fly, he has to think of who he's going to blame. In that, so he has to phrase it in such a way that he knows he's being monitored. He has to think of a name really quick.
So Knox doesn't come into Walk's workroom before that at all? It's only that one time? I thought there was more than one conversation
this is
that
it.
he has with her.
It's from the very first conversation. Whatever you're about to say, don't. Well, yes, Shirley comes in, at least to our knowledge. She doesn't make hand signals to Shirley. When he's about to say, I know it's you, she says, stop on the table. I know it's Teddy, get it? He makes up something on the fly, and you don't appreciate this character's ability to, on the fly, think of something to say while they're having this whole other conversation.
Their plan was incredible. That they would trick them into sending everyone down to the down deep so that then they could blow the staircase and trap them down there. This was so well thought out.
That he knew that he would send all the raiders to quell this rebellion. Bernard has the nuts. I know everything.
They get in trouble intentionally so that they'll be taken away. We're talking Ocean's 11 level of planning. You think something's gone wrong, but then they go back and they show you how they actually planned it and they wanted to get caught for whatever reason. And you're like, why? And then it all works out and you're like, okay, sure, I'm along for the ride.
It's Ocean's 11 without the flashback. You don't need it. It's show, don't tell. You think Ocean 11 is great? We just did this without having to show you a effing flashback. How about that?
Yeah,
I saw one flashback.
But it was enough. I didn't need to see a scene where Knox and Shirley laid out a map and they're like, here's the plan.
They use little figures to represent, you move over here and then we're going to be over here.
And a little stick that looks like a rake moving the figures, right? Because you don't want to show your hands there. You're going to block the shot with the hand. You have to use a stick. It happens too fast. But when the stairs explode, Knox and Shirley just get really close. It's like this. Like, yes. If you don't, you'll miss it if it's so quick. Oh, no. Sorry. It's when they see Julia on the ridge.
They share that glimpse. Well, because I think that's like the mutual hope, hoping that she was alive and for it to be true was such a gratifying moment for them. But also their friend, their sister is still out there, which is so exciting because you're living on that hope. But then you're like, maybe she did die, though. It's rough out there. We don't know. And my favorite scene between the two of them is when the raiders come and they have to fight them.
Of course.
And Knox says,
Avengers assemble.
Are you in this or whatever? And she's like, always. And I was like, yes.
Let's
that's what
go.
I wanted. Yeah, I know.
Whoosh.
It was like Braveheart.
Away.
you can never take our freedom. Like, that's what it felt like. That's what it
Except
felt like.
instead
honestly.
of that, it's let's effing go.
It's honestly take my freedom, because my plan specifically requires that I be where you're going to arrest
Captured
me.
and escorted.
Yes.
They might get beat up a little bit, but take me to your leader. Aliens. I did get a tickle about all the different times people would say, you're running out of time. There's no time. Billings says no time. And all these different references about time, the clocks, the ticking, the timer, the clock on Bernard's wall ticking. I've always loved the imagery and the repeating themes of when they choose to focus on something and they keep repeating that theme throughout different silos, throughout different people, symmetry between people. There was one thing I actually saw right from the beginning. It was the foreshadowing symmetry. Pete is told by Shirley that Juliet may be alive while his time is running out. The first time he believes that his daughter's alive, and that
Plus
when you
the
know that,
physical
it's like,
connection of he has the relic now, but he gives it to Hank to give back to Juliet, but that wasn't really Juliet's relic. That's George's relic. That's her connection still to George.
And George's relic isn't even his relic. It's from this senator who gave it as a gift to Helen.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe.
He's a congressman.
Because the Pez company is based in Austria and it was established in 1927. So everything we know is a lie. I thought it was American. I did actually think it was an American company.
Oh, no, I knew it wasn't. Why does the silo look so old if it's our time?
Oh, okay. Let's talk about this because let's make Bridget cry even more. Because
No.
it really,
I cried a lot
it really
already.
got me emotional. So Hope goes to Juliet. You're coming back, right? Juliet doesn't do the thing where like, yeah, of course, yes. But there's a beauty to her being
She
herself.
doesn't know if she's going to live.
On the surface, it's that. But it is what Pete Nichols says. Keep being yourself, that beautiful self that is you, that everybody loves, with all your quirks. Because it is a reminder that Juliet is pretty frank and to the point. She can be abrasive. We are constantly reminded that in the beginning of the season but you see that all throughout season one. She's adamant about finding the truth, despite all the crazy stuff that's happening around her that she finally comes online to. But there's a little bit of symmetry when she tells that to Eater, and it reminds us that, oh, Juliet isn't perfect, because you can easily fall into the trap. And we actually talked about this in the first episode, that, oh, how does Juliet know all the stuff about engineering? And then it takes her to the past. So you have all these flashback shots of her learning things with the dog and all that stuff, and why she does what she does, why she's so adamant about learning engineering. And then it explains why she can do what she can do. Same thing here. Oh, it's a reminder that she's imperfect. She doesn't know how to talk to people. I'm not going to lie to you. No, I'm not going to promise to come back if I'm not going to come back. I could die out there. That's fine. No. And that's not what Hope wants to hear. When somebody that you've sort of grown to care about, they don't want to hear that the reality of the situation. They want to hear that hopefully you'll come back okay and you're going to be all right. Chin up, buddy.
Well, that's why I liked when
she won't do it.
Solo asks, and he's like, you're not
Jimmy.
coming back. She says, I will try as long as I can.
She learns. Do you remember when we were talking about the harmonium, that he had to go down to her level in order for her to hear him? It's the same thing here. They're both emotionally stunted people whom, going back to Moon River in another universe, they would have been friends. And they are now, in his own way, because he didn't accept the hug earlier when he was testing out the suit. She goes to hug him and he goes, he just shirks a little bit. He shrinks back. He's trying in his own way to kind of meet her halfway to that hug. And he goes, I know that you said you can't say that you can come back, but you'll be back, right? It's his way of saying, I want you to come back. You mean something to me. It's not about coming back.
I believe that she will try to come back. I think there is something to that. Juliet wouldn't say that if she didn't mean it to some degree.
True, but I'm getting
She's
to a
careful.
more...
She's careful about what she says. She says she'll try. She's not the kind of person who makes a promise she can't keep.
I don't think there's anything emotionally stunted about just being honest. I don't think it's a personality defect if she doesn't want to give them hope by lying. I would have done the same thing.
Let me put it to you this way.
Juliet
As a guy who's had many girlfriends, that's not true.
Oh, okay, David the player.
That's not the point. You can say things frankly and still be the asshole.
Well,
There
sure.
is something wrong when it comes to delivery. You can say, I want to come back, and which is what she says to Solo. It's her way of saying, don't get me wrong.
Nothing's going to stop me from trying, are her exact words.
She rephrases what she says.
Juliet wouldn't
For
say that
Solo.
if she didn't
For
mean that.
Jimmy.
She wants him to understand there is a chance she may not come back.
My point is, she rephrases it in a way to say, I want to come back. It's not about making promises you can't keep. It's that do you mean something to me? Do I mean something to you? That's all Hope was saying. That's all Jimmy is trying to say. He's trying to reach her on a level that it's not, I know you can't make that promise, but did we connect here? Do I mean something to you? Was your time here all bad? That's what I'm trying to hit on. And I thought that was really touching that they found a way to express that without saying the obvious thing. And she says it in a way and reframes it in a way that's like, oh, I see what you're asking me in a mechanical engineering way. I see what you're asking me. I'm rephrasing the truth in a different way that sounds more like I'm connecting with you on an emotional level. I think that's important because even when she was seeking the truth in the first season, she realizes that the further she digs, she can get people hurt, like her father, like Hank, whatever. And she slows her roll and does things a little bit more carefully. In this episode, it's more like, I just yelled at Audrey, this is all we have, and blah, blah, blah. And she says it in such a way that is, first of all, we love because Audrey's a dick. Mm-hmm. But then she has to kind of find.
She finally told her, stop.
I was kind of shocked that the whole look she gave Hope. That's why her parents died. Would you just shut up? But then she has to live up to what she just said to Audrey and actually frame the truth in such a way that, yeah, you can say the thing, but you can say it in a way that isn't like, well, I can't promise that. What would I be if I could promise that? No, I want you to say that you want to come back, that I mean something to you. Say the truth in a way that actually says more than just what I want you to say. That helps you with the character moving forward. You can easily fall into the trap of your protagonist being, I master my emotions, I master all engineering, I can do everything right. No, clearly Juliet stumbles. She gets things wrong. She gets hurt. She has a fever. She has to take antibiotics. She also doesn't know everything. She also doesn't know how to talk to people. Because had she talked to Solo or Jimmy from the very beginning and listened to him, she would have gotten to the answer way sooner. And that's why you find out in the second to last episode that she could have gotten these answers way sooner before the explosions in Silo 18. Rant over.
The only other thing that I thought was cool or funny was when Sims goes to Lucas Kyle. His mom's like, can you put down the gun? And he's like, no, I cannot. I was like, it was so good. It was so good. It was so funny.
Simultaneously, it's also a little satisfying to see Lucas Kyle rattle Robert, because clearly whatever he said to Bernard scares him. Is he going to do it to me?
He's trying to find out what it is and no one will tell him.
And yet at the same time, he's afraid to find out. Is it going to shake me? What did you tell him?
It was a big middle finger to Sims, honestly. Bernard's like, the whole world is falling apart. Fine, I guess you can finally have it because I don't want it anymore. So you can have it now.
And then he gets another middle finger when the computer's like, you got to go, but your wife can stay.
Your wife can stay because everybody likes her more.
I guess the AI is thirsty too. He's into shady ladies with grand designs, I guess. Put your hand on the order and swear.
Swear that
that's good.
Swear that somehow you are the shadow now. You're the shadow now, even though your husband was asked to be the shadow.
But the AI has tactical feelers on the book, the order, on the cover.
Dave.
Yeah, turn the page. Yeah, Camille. Well, he was door-sexual. Last episode. He could be book-sexual too. Book talk.
I think Dave needs to be done.
That was dramatic.
That was dramatic. I loved his. It's so good. It's so good. What was that? That was dramatic. What was supposed to happen?
Objectively funny.
It was so funny. It was excellent delivery. Tim Robbins did a really great job in that scene.
Well, to be fair, when I was seeing that scene, I was like thinking to myself, oh, he asked for this. He asked for this little bit of relief. What if it doesn't explode when it's supposed to, when Martha says it will, and Bernard gets to go off in this whole comedic rant?
Travis said during that scene, he goes, that is such a trope now for it not to go off when it's supposed to.
No, but in that trope, it goes off like a few seconds later. Yeah. It doesn't have this like weird...
This was way funnier. But 100% because of Tim Robbins' delivery of that was dramatic. It was just like the sassiness of what was that? It was so good. I loved it.
But isn't that the reaction you'd have? Like, what was with the counting? You made it sound like something was going to happen. No, that's how somebody acts.
100% that Bernard and I were the same person in that moment.
more than Martha counting down the explosions and having that bit of satisfaction, because clearly they both feel like they know something the other person doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
She is literally the villain, but not the villain, telling the good guy her evil plan, right? Doesn't that feel like that when that's all happening? Something inside me went like, Martha is feeling crappy because she couldn't do the whole thing with the badges. It's like, oh man, it ruined my bigger reveal of like throwing the badges on the floor. And she's like, oh yeah. But then when it actually happens, she goes, phew, I can do this now. And she throws the badges on the floor and she felt really good about herself. Kind of like Bernard Holland.
Yeah.
I brought this backpack up for nothing. This explosion didn't go up. Wait, it did happen. Now I can do it. Here's the badges, mother effer. Like Rachel's like, oh, we can finally go.
Ray, do you feel like you understand everything that happened in the episode now? I know you had questions at the beginning.
I mean, I still have the same questions, but we won't get answers until
the
like, next season.
unanswerable ones. Yeah.
Me
too.
Yeah, we can get yay close.
It hurts my brain, honestly.
Yeah. I'm still not 100% satisfied with the ending, whether or not it's in the past
a touch of
or
from
present.
That's why I told you I felt like it could go either way, technically.
Right. I still feel like it could.
Travis, obviously watched the episode and he just goes, oh, it's been an experiment all along. And I looked at him and I went, we talked about that.
Why don't you listen to our podcast? Because I'm married to you, bitch. I don't listen to nothing.
He's like, I got to listen to it through the door all the time. He's always like, you're loud and you talk the most out of everyone, I would argue. How does anybody get a word in edgewise? That's what he always tells me.
You should tell him Dave clearly talks double the amount that I do. Should I show him the waveforms? There is something that we glided past in that scene that I thought Bridget would just particularly appreciate had she not been hung up on the fact that, is it today? Is it not today? Shut up, Bridget. There's a bigger point. Because I thought to myself, Bridget would say, the reporter herself says, the question was asked, was anybody affected by the dirty bomb?
No, she said, did you know anyone affected?
Oh, right. Do you know anybody that was affected by the dirty bomb? Mm-hmm. And they both can't answer that. My sister lives here, but she wasn't in town at the time. Mm-hmm. That's as close as they got to somebody who would be there. And then she goes even further and says whether it actually really happened to begin with. And then she kind of alludes implicitly, was it Iran? Or is that what the government's telling us? Is it a false flag, Bridget?
Turn the friggin' frogs gay!
Is the word that I was hoping to say finally. All the buildup.
Look, I'm just saying. I can't trust the government, and neither can you.
See, because when you said the dirty bomb could be where it is in the present, like that big area where there's a huge, looks like fallout, could that have been the dirty bomb? That threw me off because I was thinking to myself, oh no, this is what they said to all the people, the dirty bomb, all the radiation checking at the door and all this stuff. Did you find it?
That's how they got you into the silos in the first place.
Right. I never finished that thought because they say a dirty bomb happened. Clearly nobody has footage. Maybe nobody was affected. And maybe not so clearly, the Bridget thought, maybe that's what they told people. That, oh, we have to go into bunkers because Iran.
How else do you get a bunch of people into bunkers, Dave?
Terrorism. Also pandemic.
Well, that's how you get people to buy out toilet paper, but...
Also to stay in their homes. Oh. Well, so there was a scene as Paul Billings was going up the stairs with everybody else. You see Lucas Kyle run ahead, but then it pans down to everybody else behind him and Knox and Shirley going on ahead and blah, blah, blah. There's this tiny shot of Billings looking outward, kind of like we do. We pay attention to these little things like...
And people are grabbing their kid and like getting inside.
And they're scared and they're confused and they're going inside their homes. This is the upper levels, maybe the upper mids, maybe even higher than that. And it's what we've said about Billings all along. We want the truth. And this kind of reflects Juliet too, her growth into like maybe back off the truth a little bit. Maybe don't rush in headlong and get people hurt along the way, yourself included. Billings has to keep that eye on the ball. Is this what's best for everyone, finding the truth? Is the pact worth the paper it's printed on? And this is something they will definitely go into further in the next season. He sees the people go inside. Is what we're doing the best for everyone? Is this what's going to keep people safe? Is this going to maximally make it so that these 10,000 people can survive? Is the truth worth even one life ending because of all of this? I'm not saying there's an answer. I said this before. I love the tension. And in just one scene where there's no dialogue and you see the expression on Billings' face as he's seeing these terrified people go inside, I picked up all of that. And I think it's lovely. And it says a lot about Paul Billings. So there.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Yeah, he seems great. Sandy
Actually,
says.
I love like all the people in this. I love all of the people, honestly, except for
Especially
Holland.
Bernard.
But even he has his moments.
That's where I was going to go back to.
I thought we were going away from. I thought we were done.
Yeah, but the recap did one thing about Bernard Holland that I asked at the sort of middle end of the last episode. Is there anything redeeming about Bernard? And maybe there isn't, and that's fine.
His humor.
Yes, clearly. And that's just
redeeming.
For us.
Yeah,
clearly, nobody else
great.
Appreciates it.
I love it.
But I asked the question because they're not going to let us off the hook that easy. There's going to be a redeeming quality. And when he does lose his fight,
well, I don't want him to die.
We attribute that he has this very important job to do, is keeping 10,000 people safe. That is actually true.
He does do it. In order to stop them from leaving, he barricades himself in that room and threatens to kill anybody that comes in there. I mean, he does do it. He is doing his job. I don't think he does any of his job the right way. That's personal disagreement I have with him. But that's good writing, because even though he could be viewed as the quote unquote villain, I still don't want him to die.
This says a lot about him. You would think that even if he knows that the game is rigged or whatever it is, it feels like this was about to happen, that he was going to go into the vault and just, that's why I thought he was getting the suit in case they open the door. I'll have the suit on, the dirty, toxic poison air, whatever, because you're right, Bridget. It is poison air. It's maybe not radioactivity. Anyway, I'll take the suit, go to the vault, and be selfish, thinking only about himself, Bernard, because you could accuse him of that. But what he doesn't do that. He's not thinking of preserving himself over everything else, preserving a child that he doesn't have. Like Meadows, he thinks about the things he's lost along the way. What did Meadows want to do? She just wanted to go outside. I'm going to do this not only for me, but I'm going to do this for her. I'm going to give her what she couldn't have. I'm going to go take a walk outside. And I'm going to carry this gun, he says to Juliet, for the end, in case it becomes too painful. I'm not saying that redeemed him, but he does acknowledge all the things I did, all the sacrifices I made to get to that truth. It's for nothing. And I get it. I'm going to be real with you. There's a lot of things that many people can get away with doing in public life that you can't get away with. Most people try, and then they get the criticism, they get the pushback and all that stuff. I see people all the time calling others Nazis. You're casually saying that some people are the worst things in the world. And here I am treading a line between saying, extraordinary claims that you're saying casually require extraordinary evidence too. The bigger your claim that you're casually rattling off, there is a part of me that has this weird, I'm not saying I would do horrific things for this podcast, mind you. What I'm saying is that you have a responsibility. People look at you to break down things, to make them laugh, to give them joy. You can't do what they do. You have an image to uphold as somebody who says things to try to make people happy and bring people together and say the positive things about certain things. You can't do what I do, is essentially the message. And it's exhausting. And I see that in Bernard's face. The fight is gone. It is hard to maintain that image of being that conciliator, and it's really exhausting. So when I see people casually say terrible, terrible things about people they don't even know, or maybe even people they do know, it makes me lose the fight. And sometimes I slip up and I rake myself over the coals for letting myself have a moment even to say things maybe not quite the way that one like me should. Can you imagine how it is for celebrities or people in public life? And yeah, maybe some of them don't put it the right way. That's fine, but let them have it. Let them be imperfect like you, saying the things on the internet so casually and so meanly too.
We have free speech, then everyone should be able to say whatever it is that they would like to say, because that's the whole point of that freedom.
I think two things can be true.
Both ways, right?
Yes. I think people should be careful. And if you don't know everything about a certain subject, maybe not say the worst thing imaginable to other people in such a casual way.
I think people should be informed before they discuss things, which is why I don't have opinions about a lot of things, because I don't know everything about everything.
It does make it so that I can connect with Bernard on a level that is, there is a weight and responsibility to keep 10,000 people alive. And I get that you sunk your life into it to the point where you threw your only love that we know of under the bus to keep that alive, because she was doing erratic things and the silo don't like that or something.
That makes it the saddest, really, is that he gave up everything for nothing. We won't know more about that until next season, and I still don't really understand it, but it's fine.
It's fine because it's satisfying enough. Even if it's it's satisfying.
Well, it's because Juliet showed up at the end.
Well, if you like what you heard,
head on over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. Give us 5 stars and fire emoji. Because this episode was fire. And maybe you don't feel that way. That's okay.
Fire.
And if you don't feel that way, that's okay. Leave us that rating also, because either way, we'll read it online, just even if it's to our detriment. But it helps. So do that. And then also go to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead if you want to donate, or patreon.com/squawkingdead. It's your preferences. I heard it and I said it anyway. And flubby flub. If you really like us and you really like what we do, then go ahead and go to patreon.com or ko-fi.com and join a membership tier, or just give one donation one time, and then you get unlimited access to our Discord. I keep flubbing my words, but it's fine. I said access instead of access, and it's fine.
Do you ever notice that people stop listening and there's still like 5 minutes left of every episode? They hear, if you like what you heard, and then they immediately turn it off.
Oh, yeah. Most people do that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But then they'll miss the juicy stuff at the end, which they should regret having missed.
But they don't, because they don't know.
Yeah, because they never know.
They don't know, so they don't regret anything. Yeah, they don't.
That's really sad.
They don't know.
The hardcore fans know, and then the whisper campaign starts, and they'll be like, well, did you listen to the end of the show where Bridget described the lyrics of a song that now I know about? What was that song that I left in for the end of the episode? See, you didn't listen to the end of the episode.
What are you talking about?
I've sang on so many episodes, I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about...
No, not St. Elmo's Fire.
Elmo's Fire.
I've been your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by
Cosmo Mom 09
and Bridget. You can find me at ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. This PUNKYBRUISETER. But here's the thing, I've never updated anything on there. I will though soon, so just go look.
Sure,
maybe.
She says that now, likely. St. Elmo's Fire,
higher and higher.
See you next season, folks. We got 2 more in the chamber, green lit. When will Silo come back? Oh, maybe 2027.
I don't know. Will we have spoilers? But I don't mean spoilers. Will we have screeners? I hope so.
Well, tune into our Discord for more of that, because we'll probably reveal it there over a regular podcast episode, because we don't want to step in it. Take care, everybody. We'll see you in the next one, whenever that will be, because we don't have anything left to talk about for now. We'll miss you in the meantime, and we'll see you when we see you. Check us out on social media, by the way.
Snow Day.
Follow us in the meantime for more news and little videos and stuff like that later. So we love you. Later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
That's staying in. Stay golden, boy.
I don't know what that was.
That was great, whatever it was. Thank you for making it to the end of not only this episode, the season 2 finale of Silo, titled Into the Fire, but for making it to all of our episodes discussing Silo, from the season 1 recap to discussing every single episode of season 2. We know it's not the Walking Dead universe, but it goes beyond, and these shows, in our opinion, are not only really, really entertaining, but they have a lot to dig into, break down, discuss, predict. Just like the characters on The Walking Dead, we invest in the characters, and we definitely appreciate you taking the chance on what we're attempting to do on this podcast, expand our horizons, discuss shows that you may want a podcast to discuss and interact with. And what I said at the end of the episode is true. We will definitely miss you, because we will be taking a sort of hiatus of sorts. For the last 10 plus months, we've been covering, in many cases, multiple episodes per week. We've hired an editor to help with the backlog, trying to get all these episodes out on time, most times succeeding, sometimes not, and releasing the episode right after the following episode airs. But we do our best, and that's why we are fairly consistent in asking you for your support, whether it be tipping us on Ko-fi and getting forever access to our Discord, or joining a membership tier, getting the same perk, but with more access to more channels, depending on your tier level. And you can do that on either ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead, as we attempted to say at the end of this episode. And the reason why I'm mentioning it now is that because of our hiatus, we could talk about a whole lot of other things, some things that are in development, and some shows we may want to tackle next, shows that are on the horizon, shows we've already covered, like The Last of Us, Dead City's coming back as well, and we may have let it slip in a previous podcast, but we are discussing whether or not we should talk about AMC's Dark Winds. We do have screeners for that. I will say that we mentioned that both in a podcast episode and in our Discord. So we're discussing currently in one of our threads whether we should even discuss this series, or if we do, how to tackle this series, because season 3 starts at the beginning of March and we're trying to figure out whether we should do a season 1 and season 2 recap or combine them, or whether we should do it at all. So consider just tipping us and getting forever access to our Discord. We want to keep in touch with you, and in the meantime we'll be releasing a handful of videos on our YouTube channel that aren't really suitable for audio podcast. We just threw up a featurette on Mad Monster Expo 2024. Sharon had gone out to Charlotte to visit for the day. She took a selfie with Anthony Starr, who plays Homelander on The Boys, and spoke to a handful of cosplayers talking about why they're here, their favorite fandoms. It's an almost 4-minute video, the raw materials of which we've put in both our Patreon and Ko-fi shops for you to download. If you are a member, you will get them for free. If you're not, it's $4. They're both pay what you want. If you want to give us a little extra, worth the download, because some of the materials did not make the final cut of that 4-minute video. In terms of size, it's about 4 gigabytes. That's why we charge $4. And I think the total runtime of all the materials is about 12 minutes. So there's quite a handful of hot takes and flubs and funny things that happen throughout that I think is worth the download. If you're going to support us anyway, it's worth getting something back for that support. In any case, we like to thank, aside from you listening, the folks who make this podcast viable, namely the Great M, Survivors, and Whispers tier members in that order. Starting with the Great M tier, we have at RealRyanGM on X and Instagram. Moving on to our Survivors tier, we have at Walking Dead Artist 2 on Instagram. Of the Whisperers, we have ko-fi.com/fanartlindy, at ElizaJones71 on Instagram, and at Kim.Rowley, the number 1 on Facebook. We will miss you. We are excited about seasons 3 and 4 of Silo whenever they will come back. We're really excited about what's to come and happy to announce that we will be attending the camp on Memorial Day at the end of May. And like I said at the end of the episode, follow us on social media so you can get more info. You can get all that at squawkingdead.com, because sometimes we give you news. But also, at the end of every episode, it seems, we're here to remind you that we are Squawking Dead.